And at this point, Jeff will be playing the intro music, and I'll be looking like a dork doing this while it plays, even though right now, technically it's not. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going about this alone. Jeff was able to record a few episodes for me on my behalf while I was out with a little bit of a medical issue, but nothing too bad. We are back, and today I am so excited. We have not only a listener to the podcast, but somebody that I find ultimately so interesting. Antoinette Lee, your story is just powerful of where you came from. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me, Nate, and I'm so glad you're feeling better. I'm doing well, and I'm glad to know that you are too.
Yes, it was a little hit and miss there, honestly, for a little bit, and I am glad that I am in favor with my God and who He is in my life, because without Him, I probably would have been scared. But I'm not now.
Amen.
Hey, and you know how this begins. You know, we always start with some softball questions. Usually they're softball. So we're going to go ahead and hit the randomizer and bring up question number 1. If you could live in any fantasy world, be it Hogwarts, Narnia, your choice, where would you choose?
I would be in the set of Vikings.
Oh,
That would be my fantasy world.
oh, good golly. Well, that one was not on the playlist for me. Why Vikings?
Well, I'm a warrior at heart, and I'm actually Nigerian from the Benin people. We are very warlike people, and I'm also Irish. And as you know, Ireland was invaded many, many times by Vikings.
Yes.
So Vikings, sort of that environment feels right at home. I don't know what that says about me, but I would totally be in for it.
Well, now we're in for Antoinette Viking Warrior. What was the last mistake that you made that you're sure you'll probably make again?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It was a fishing mistake. And you never want to, when you're especially standing in a river, I'm walleye fishing and I'm in waders. And I took a step and committed to it before I was sure I had solid footing. And then my waders almost filled up. But
Oh,
I
goodness.
knew what to do and, turn around and swam toward shore. And it was all good. But that was a rookie mistake.
Now, where do you live near that you're out walleye fishing?
Well, I live in the North Woods, which it comprises Michigan, northern Wisconsin, and Minnesota.
Oh, good golly. Oh, my goodness. Some fishing would be absolutely amazing right now. We're down here in Charleston, and we can hit those bass all day long, the catfish. I think the last one I caught was a 55-pound blue cat. Oh, it was big. And those you have to just throw back. So at least with walleye, you can actually get some good eating off of them. Orange is the
Exactly.
new black, or House of Cards. Which is it?
House of Cards, I would not want to be locked up.
Touche. All right. Well, that one definitely wins that one. Those are actually the first time I have had all 3 of those questions. So you should really feel special, because I'm telling you right now, why House of Cards, aside from not being locked up?
Well, I'm smarter than the average politician, so I could navigate my way there. And I don't really want to have to fight every day
Yeah.
in prison.
You're absolutely not wrong at all, at any level whatsoever. I'm a huge House of Cards fan. I have my degree is in political science. I have lived out the political world. I'm actually working on a political campaign right now for a gentleman that's running for Congress down here in South Carolina. And I have to tell you that part of it kind of scares me, when the things I've seen some people do in the background kind of has me a little bit scared and makes me think that maybe prison's not so bad.
My gosh.
Not by my politician. I want to make that perfectly clear. Gee, let's go ahead and cut that part out. He'll leave it anyways. It's okay. Antoinette, why don't you give us your background? Tell us where you've come from. I know your background, and I know that there is a huge history of the sports world and kind of where you came from in your military career. But why don't you take us through it? Take us as far back as you want to go and bring us to the current.
Well, I am from a legacy family of veterans. My father and his twin brother served in World War II, and they didn't wait until they were drafted. They volunteered, and then they volunteered again for the Korean conflict.
Wow.
And I later served in the area where my dad was fighting as an infantryman when I was assigned to the 65th Medical Battalion, which is it's the real MASH that the show MASH was based on. And I was part of that unit, attached to that unit. But when I was 5 years old, I told my parents I was going to join the Army, not because my dad was in the Army and my mother's 4 brothers were in the Army. It was because I knew on the inside I'm a warrior. And for those of you out there who don't understand what a warrior is, we're not violent people by nature. We are protectors. We are the people in your community, the 7% of Americans who knew they were mentally, physically, and spiritually strong enough to protect others. And so that's why I wanted to join the Army, and I did. And I became part of the Staff Sergeant Mafia.
Yes, there it is.
Which is, if you need something to happen and you don't want to know the details of how you got it done, you call a staff sergeant because we'll make it happen. And then you don't want to know how we did it.
There's so much truth to that right here. Oh, my goodness. And if you've served in the military, don't let anybody in on our little secret of how we get things done. Just know if you need it done, it'll get done.
Absolutely. And so when I was in the military, I was trained in anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, infection control, disease prevention, dentistry, and advanced first level. It's called an expert field medic. I was trying to think of the word. So when I was in the military, unfortunately, I had a traumatic brain injury while I was performing my role as an air assault qualified expert field medic. And air assault qualified just means, if you've never been in the Army, that you're qualified and trained to rappel out of helicopters, down mountains, off buildings, to sling load equipment so it can be hoisted away by a helicopter, or to perform some other job. And so an infantryman, for example, would rappel in and go do infantry stuff. I would rappel in and go do medical stuff. I'd give medical aid to people. And sometimes I'd have to carry men who outweighed me by 100 pounds on my back in a fireman's carry. So I was needed to be quite strong. So I became a bodybuilder and power lifter. And it turns out I had natural ability. I did not have to use any performance enhancement drugs. My genes are just genetically predisposed to being very strong. So I had a 200-pound bench press, a 350-pound deadlift, and a 500-pound squat. And I could carry a man. I could run with a man on my back. I could walk. I could carry a litter with another person. It didn't matter. I could do all the aspects of my job. I even can push a howitzer, which is a big gun, across a field. It's on wheels by myself.
Oh, good. Oh, wow. You got some power behind you on those legs.
Yes, sir.
So then let me ask you a question. So the newly minted Department of War, or reminted Department of War, secretary came down and said that there was going to be no more of these individualized PT tests for combat-based roles, including, he said if women can do it, they should be able to go out and do that job, but we're not going to change the differential in standard. How do you feel about that?
Amen. It should have been that way the entire time. Because here's the thing. When a patient needs someone to fireman carry them out,
Hmm.
the patient is not going to say, oh, I need to suddenly lose 50 pounds so a woman can carry me. The patient is the patient. The job
Hmm.
is the job. So every person who's performing that job needs to have the ability to perform the job without exceptions, because the job is not going to say, oh, you're a DEI hire, I'm going to be less strenuous for you.
Yeah.
That's not real.
Yeah. And, and I asked that question. I think that people are probably expecting that you were going to give a different answer than what you gave, but I admire that you gave that answer. When I was we call them military training instructors. It's a drill instructor for the Air Force. I was doing that job, and I was about to get my first female flight, and I was like, oh gosh, like how am I supposed to handle myself when it comes to this? So I actually had reached out to my MTI whenever I went through basic training, and I said, hey sir, how do I do this? And he looked at me so straight faced, and he said, listen, Nathan, you handled them the exact same way that you would handle a man, and they're going to respect you so much coming out of that experience that you will just feel the difference in how they react compared to how other female flights will react. And he was 100% right. I mean, I yelled at them. I ripped into them. I did the exact same things that I did on male flights with them, because there is no differentiating when you're on the when you're on the battlefield, when you're in the middle of the muck and you get yelled at. I need you to be able to respond in the same manner. And whether you're a male or a female, I need you to be able to respond in the same way. And they killed it. In fact, on the back of those shirts, it has "Ladies Killing It" was their motto. So
I love
absolutely
it.
love it. Yeah. But please continue down.
So I was in Korea, and I was on a exercise with the Korean Auxiliary to the United States Army, or KATUSAs, which I managed both American soldiers and KATUSA soldiers, Korean soldiers.
Wow.
But we were on a mission or a training exercise with Republic of Korea, or ROK soldiers. And so the same conditions that injured a couple of other people, I was rappelling down to help someone injured, and the same conditions got me. I don't remember anything from about 2 weeks before the incident until about the day that I was leaving the hospital. It's like a blank slate.
Mm.
I only know what people told me. And so what they said was I was unconscious for so long, they thought they were going to be recovering my body. And then suddenly, when someone was rappelling down to me, I started moving. And not only did I start moving, I got myself down. They didn't rescue me. I got myself down and collapsed, and I had a traumatic brain injury, and I broke my back, and I still managed to get down on my own. So fast forward, after the military, went and earned 2 more college degrees. I have a total of 3 college degrees, speak 4 languages, and 2 of those languages I picked up after the traumatic brain injury, but it was hard. And I managed to work my way up. I was not a DEI hire in technology. I worked my way up from the call center help desk to chief executive officer. And then between my traumatic brain injury, the spinal cord injury, having arthritis from my neck to my tailbone, and complications to the way that I was treated during that time, I started forgetting a lot of things, to the point where I couldn't drive. I couldn't cook for myself. I couldn't walk without a walker. I'd have a service dog, a full-time caregiver, and my health went downward very rapidly. So from tech CEO down to not even be able to bathe myself or get out of bed on my own.
Wow. And and I have to imagine that, as someone who has quite literally pulled themselves up from the bootstraps, going from the call center to the CEO, to not be able to do something for yourself must have just hit you like a ton of bricks.
It did, because when you are injured, when you even have a job loss or a divorce, or you lose someone who's close to you, it's a big blow and it's a loss of identity. So let's say your spouse dies and now you're a widower where you were married, or
Hmm.
you get fired from a job or downsized from a job, and your part of your identity was your job. Part of my identity was being a former competitive bodybuilder and being part of the staff sergeant mafia, and now being in the C-suite. That was my identity, and I lost it all overnight. So quickly, I didn't really have time to process it until much later.
Wow. Eh, See, and that's so much in just a short conversation that is just it's mind-blowing, but I can definitely see why you go with the term warrior. The
Right.
term warrior has stretched across the battlefield to the C-suite, if you will, in this case, 100%. What would you say was probably the hardest aspect of what you went through?
I think your head game, because for a lot of people, one of the things that you'll find is that your brain will start to give you negative messages. You can't, you won't, you'll never.
Mm,
And what's worse is that your friends, your family, your religious community, and your doctors will tell you the same thing. Yes, you'll never do this again. You won't ever have that again. You shouldn't want to do this. You're going to set yourself up for failure. They want you to think small and live small. And when you start doing that, if they put you in a box that's 10 by 10, in your brain, that box is now 5 by 5. So whatever limitations people set on you, your own brain is going to twist that into being even smaller and even more limiting. I don't believe in limiting beliefs at all for any reason.
hmm Well, and you said it that you didn't want to be in jail, right? We had asked the question about Orange is the New Black, and it's true, and I can now see where that 5 by 5 can also seem like a cell where you're kept inside of it.
Exactly. And you become sort of a prisoner to other people's expectations. So I reject the thought of people labeling me as someone with a disability. Yes, I cannot process information like a person who does not have an injured brain. I cannot work as hard as someone who doesn't have an injured brain. Life is a lot more challenging for me because I have an injured brain. However, I don't have a disability. I have differing abilities.
Ooh, differing abilities. See, I think people get held back so much when they try to see those differences between everything they have. And you've mentioned it a few times already, DEI being one of those things where we pride ourselves more often than not in the diversity, which I think is a good, valuable thing, right? But it's those differing abilities that people bring to teams that we should promote versus just the differences wholeheartedly for face value.
100%. Because if we can, go off track for just a moment about DEI, because I have a DEI soapbox that I want to stand on.
Go
The
ahead.
worst thing that could have happened, in case you don't know, I'm Black and Irish, but in case you don't know, when you look at me, I'm a Black woman, right? The worst thing that could have happened to people of color, people with disabilities, anyone who is formerly marginalized was DEI, and here's why. Every job I have ever had, from CEO to staff sergeant to a brand ambassador for multiple brands in the outdoor industry, I have earned it. It's because I worked hard, have a good education, a solid work ethic, and people like working with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm good at the things that I do. But now, forever, since 2020, Everyone sees me and they're like, oh, good for you, DEI at its best. And they don't expect anything from you. They treat you like you're not capable of doing the job because they assume you're not capable of doing the job because so many people were hired only because they checked a DEI box.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is for some people, they will look at you and ask you, well, how can I help you? How can I do this for you? Can I help you do your job? How can I be supportive? I don't need your help. I earned my position here. I'm qualified for this job. Stop treating me like I'm 5 years old in the big boy class, in the big girl class. I deserve to be here.
And listen, when you go out and you listen to Antoinette's podcast, you're going to hear conversations that are going to drive you down this road of just the way that this woman carries on a conversation, the way that she carries her heart on her sleeve and what she says is just as momentum setting, and I probably would say sets a pace. I love the fact that you and I get to sit here and have this conversation that yes, we have a lot of the same feelings, and I think that always makes a conversation easy to have. For me, when I retired out of the military, it was during the time of DEI, and being a white male, let's be honest, it was actually a little bit more difficult for me to be put in those positions, even though I had a momentous career. I had done some things. I worked for the president, right? Like I worked Air Force One for 4.5 years. Like I did some pretty amazing things, but it's like, yeah, but we're
You're
kind of
a
on
white
a
guy.
different kind of hiring trend right now. Do it for the merit, right? And I know that you have been put in some amazing business. I love the fact that you are actually, I love the TV show MASH. And so to was it like that though in Korea for you? Did they have the humor associated with them?
It kind of was, but I think we were a little more intelligent than the characters on that show, but the antics of what we got up to is kind of a little bit realistic.
All right, so let's look at the resilience side of this. All right, I know that you have a story of resilience coming out of a TBI, continuing on into the sports arena, having so many companies come and back your play, quite literally. Talk to us about that. What was that like?
Well, so the main thing was I first used archery to retrain my brain using neuroplasticity to train my brain for things like that require focus, like this conversation, reading a book, things of that nature. Then I used whitewater kayaking, and I started out still using a walker, a service dog, and my full-time caregiver. My dog would watch me combat roll my kayak, because if you go upside down on the river in your boat, you have to combat roll it back up yourself or get some help if that's possible. And she would watch me go under the water and she would flip out until I roll back up. People would tell me, but I could actually hear her underwater, like, losing her mind, like, lady, I'm supposed to be taking care of you. What are you doing?
This is the complete
underwater?
Opposite of what is supposed to be happening right now.
Exactly.
I could hear it.
But what that did for me is it helped my body to reconnect that brain-body movement connection. And so for 3 months, I learned to whitewater kayak alongside kayakers who were blind with amputated legs, amputated arms. They were adaptive kayaking using different adaptive devices. And then in 3 months, we got out on the river and I was free. I was in this little plastic boat going down river like everyone else. I didn't have a disability in those moments. I was just a kayaker. And that was such a freeing experience that even a lot of able-bodied people will never get to experience. I've been whitewater kayaking at high water, like at flood conditions. In fact, a few minutes after my friends and I got downriver, the river was closed because so many people had to be rescued that day. And I whitewater kayaked my best session ever at flood stages in Colorado near Fort Collins.
Well, luckily there was a air assault qualified individual rescue person. Would you say that you're a rescue diver certified now?
No, I am not. And you know what? I am not I have been trained to rescue people in it's called swift water rescue or fast moving water rescue, but I am not at the level where I can where I feel comfortable rescuing someone else, because I could potentially go in to rescue them and then two people need rescue. However, the love of my life, who is also a TBI survivor, he did 2 tours kicking indoors with 3rd Marine Division in Iraq, and
Oh, wow.
he watches my back on the river, and he also rescues other people. He's quite a great kayaker as well.
Well, it sounds like together you make quite a power couple.
I like to think so, yeah.
So you went into archery, you went into kayaking, and what did that lead to once you actually got involved in the community?
So imagine this. I'm on what I thought was my deathbed. I literally, back in 2014, was looking down on my body. I felt like my soul had left my body. I was watching my dog. My service dog wouldn't leave my side, not for food, water, to play, to go outside for more than 24 hours. She looked as though she was saying goodbye to me. And I wasn't panicked. I was like, okay, God, I'm grateful for the life that you've given me. Because comparatively, even though I've had this huge trauma, I mean, I grew up middle class, maybe even upper middle class by the things we did. I've lived an adventurous life. I've had awards. I've had accolades. I've done all the things. I want more time, but if it's my time to go, God, I'm ready to sit at your right hand. And then I said, but God, if you give me one more day, I promise you, I will find out why I'm so sick and tired. And then I'm going to reach back and help other people, because I am not the only one. I know I'm not the only veteran. I know I'm not the only one whose doctors keep providing different treatments that don't make you any better.
Yeah. So I've got to look at the mental aspect, right? We fight so hard to continue to keep our minds active, to keep but the physical side of it, I think that we get stuck on, and it's like you said, there's the ailing portion of the body that just doesn't want to continue on and doesn't want to just go and hurt anymore. How have you persevered through that pain, through the hurt, the agony of what that looks like?
I love this question, because if I was not raised with a strong faith, I mean, spiritual resilience is everything. It's your ability to keep going and have a sense of spiritual peace and purpose and overall well-being in the face of trauma, adversity, stress, all those big life changes. So I drew on my faith-based spirituality or spiritual resilience to get me through. Because when I was feeling like I'm being persecuted by the VA and the healthcare system that's not really helping me, when I was feeling like I was alone, I remembered God is with me. I might not have a friend right now. I might not have a job right now. I might not have a social life right now, but I've got God, and I'm not by myself. And when I woke up that next morning after praying to God, being in gratitude first, but then praying for, if you give me one more day, I'm going to help myself and other people. For the first time in 18 months, I sat up in bed alone, grabbed my walker, and could walk around with my walker by myself for the first time in 18 months. Then I sat down and created my new normal big life. And the life that I sat down to create in 2014, by 2018, I was living that life. And it was so loud and so big and so purpose driven that brands started asking me to be a brand ambassador to represent their outdoor industry brand. And that led me to creating a foundation called the American Adventure Sports Club so that people from low income families, children, seniors, adults, families could get outside and adventure at no cost, because adventure sports is very expensive, and the typical household has $100,000 income who recreate, believe it or not, because it costs a lot of money. If you want to be a whitewater kayaker, you're going to spend, if you're going to get good gear and the right gear for kayaking in cold water, you're going to need about $3,000 to $4,000. Actually, probably about $4,500 for the
Wow.
boat and your dry suit and all the other things that go along with it. All of these sports are expensive. So we created a club and an adventure camp. And now we take kids, we take families, we take seniors out, and we teach them all the skills. And we also teach them to be stewards of the land and water in their communities.
And I think everybody should go to the website, AASC. It is the American Adventure Sports Club.org. It's a nonprofit organization. I'm looking at the website right now, just because as you were talking, I felt compelled to go. You can sign up for updates. They'll be able to put out a lot of information to you. This is specifically focused on low-income families,
Right.
nothing
Exactly.
military-based.
Nothing military based. If you are an American who cannot afford to adventure, then you can participate with the American Adventure Sports Club. We started it in Colorado, and we're looking to expand it to every community in the country. So I'm going to be submitting an unsolicited proposal to the federal government to see if they'll fund this, because in Canada, there's a hockey rink in almost every community, and you can go learn for free. But in America, if you want to play a sport or like an adventure sport, then you have to come up with a lot of money for your gear, for training, for getting to and from these events. We've been providing it at no cost through government grants and but mostly grassroots donations, which has been so beautiful, and a lot of volunteers who just love to recreate. So the kids, for example, we take them to camp in the mountains in Colorado, and they learn how to set up tents, and they learn to fish, archery, kayaking, paddleboarding, hiking, climbing, and also stewardship, and leave no trace. And catch and release fishing.
Yeah, well, see, I'm more of a catch and eat type of person, but still, what to know before adventuring. I love that you actually give little tips and tricks for how to leave nature the way that nature was meant to be on some of this. But you've got some amazing sponsors, from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife to, Carhartt to Liquid Logic. You've got some huge names that are backing you on this.
Yes, because I was so excited about being able to finally leave my house. I developed agoraphobia. I could not leave my house for 18 months. And for 18 months, I was so debilitated. By the end, I could only sip clear broth and water. And to be able to leave my house, not feel like, oh, I'm such a freak because I have, a walker and a caregiver, and, I'm an adult and I have somebody younger than me telling me how to live my life because I needed them to. Like, I didn't know how to use a can opener at that point. My brain had forgotten all these things. So to now be able to be so empowered that I can draw a 75-pound compound bow. Most men don't even, the average man can do a 75-pound compound bow, but a lot of men can't. I live on a homestead in a forest, and I routinely lift 100 pounds by myself like it's nothing. In fact, can I tell you a funny story?
Absolutely.
So I was in the Wally Mart And I'm
Is it because we're
standing
not
with,
sponsored by them that we can't say Walmart?
no, I just call it the Wally Mart to be funny, but I was in Walmart and they sell two 16-pound bags of charcoal that are plastic wrapped together. So 32-pound bags of charcoal. And I've got like this really elegant purse on my shoulder. And then I'm holding 32 pounds of charcoal in one arm, just resting in the bend of my elbow. And I've got some collagen peptides in the other hand, and I'm reading the package, and everybody's walking by with their mouth wide open, staring at me. And I'm like, am I appropriately dressed? What's going on? You know, I'm wearing my Carhartt like everybody else. What's happening? But it was because I'm carrying 32 pounds on my arm like it's a plate, and they were so shocked. But it's wonderful to surprise people, to show them that, I was a very skinny, sickly looking kid when I was little. And by the time I was in high school, I was a pretty good runner. I was a state championship long distance runner and all of the things. So you can envision a life that is so grand, and you don't have to focus on how am I going to pay for it? How am I going to get the skills or the education? Where am I going to find people to help me? Once you envision that life and you start every day taking a step forward, before you know it, like me, 4 years later, my life was bigger than I ever imagined. And I had all these A-list sponsors, not only sponsoring me as an individual, but the nonprofit that I developed with my fiance, Matt.
Well, and it sounds like there's a lot to your resilience, not just the aspect of God, but the aspect of nature and what the healing principles. And I know that sounds very like almost new age-ish, but in my view, I see that God created the heavens and the earth, right? And there's just something to nature that brings us back to our original roots. So in that line of thinking, how would you define spiritual resilience?
Well, I actually said it earlier, but spiritual resilience is the ability to have spiritual strength, purpose, and wellness despite whatever you're going through, because you know that you're not alone. You know that God walks with you. You know that you have the church community, and not just your small church community, but the entire community of believers throughout the globe supporting you and praying for you and uplifting you. When we think about the fact that throughout the Western world, there is an epidemic of loneliness. And one of the reasons is we've gotten away from the things that we used to do communally, like going to church and praying and being part of a church community. And there was a study in 2023 in Ukraine that said Christians who went to worship, who continued to go to worship, they felt more resilient. They felt like their life had more purpose. They were less afraid, and they bounced back from devastating loss faster.
So one of the questions I used to ask on the podcast, and I had kind of gotten away from it, but I think I'm going to bring it back with you, Antoinette, is how do you exercise spiritual resilience? How do you exercise what it looks like to be resilient? It's one thing to say, it's because of this belief in this, but what do you tangibly do to be able to produce that in your life?
Oh, I love this question. So you mentioned it earlier, is the connection to nature. I love being around the church community, being in church with the stained glass windows and the music and all of that. It really just uplifts your soul. But when I'm out in God's creation, and I'm doing something for the benefit of that creation, whether I'm doing something for humanity, like with the nonprofit, or I'm cleaning up the forest so there's not a kindling laying around that if there's a spark, it'll ignite the entire forest, or I'm doing river cleanup. When I'm doing God's work, when I'm communing with nature, with God created me. I came from the earth. I'm part of the earth. I'm going to go back to, my body will go back to the earth. My soul will ascend into heaven. But I'm part of the natural process. And anytime that I can do anything, whether it's doing something for myself, like going for a walk, cross-country skiing, which is coming up soon, or ice fishing, because it's winter. I'm all about winter sports right now. Or I'm helping someone else reconnect to nature, like through our nonprofit. That's my expression of spiritual resilience in nature and really communing with God. And if you ever really want to feel God at the highest level, you go get as far away as you can from man-made light and sound. And just look at the beauty, whether it's in the mountains, in the forest, on the river, or lakes, as far away from people as you can get. When you start to process the grandness of what God has made, and you can see the firmament, and you can see the stars twinkling in a way that you can't when there's human-made light, it'll bring you to tears. You will feel this deep connection to God that will resonate in your chest. And that's one of the reasons I love being outside in nature.
Yeah, and see, there's one thing that I've always wanted to do. I've always been south of the Mason-Dixon line. And so one thing and that my family's wanted to do, and my mother just recently passed away in July. And so we're spending a lot of time with my dad, really having some good connectability moments because my mom had early onset dementia. And so the last 8 years have been really, really tough on him. And so one thing that he always wanted to do was something that we're going to do as a family. So August next year, we're going on an Alaskan cruise so that we can actually go see the Northern Lights, right?
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for you.
It's
I
just,
want to take an Alaskan cruise too.
yeah, well, go ahead. There's plenty of spots open up. We'll send you the details. It'll be great. But that's been the one thing that my dad has always wanted to do. And so it's we're not calling them bucket list items, right? But we're calling them connection points.
I
And
love
so
that.
everything we're doing are connection points, either between him and our son, or him and us as a familial unit. And so
That's beautiful.
if you could go back pre-TBI, right? I know how I was before I had been injured in the military and the different things that I went through, and I was very, very cocky. I was a very cocky individual, right? Some would say I still am, but I'm not. Don't worry. But I know the advice I would give myself. What would you go back to pre-TBI, pre everything that has happened that took you to low points? What advice would you give yourself?
I would tell myself to safeguard your health better. When you're young, you feel indispensable or you feel invulnerable. I'm not sure that's the right word right now, but I'm having a little bit of TBI issue
We'll
on
go
that
with
word,
it.
but you feel like nothing bad will ever happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Your bones will heal quickly, the muscles will repair quickly, and all of the things. Had I known that your health can decline so quickly, I would have, while I was in the military, taken vitamins and minerals and other supplements to support bone health and mood health and brain function and building strong muscles and all of those things that I didn't really think about until after I got injured. I mean, I ate whole foods. You can't build a body with that much muscle on junk food. Maybe somebody could, but I couldn't. So I ate well, but I don't think I used adequate supplements to support my good brain health and other of the 13 bodies of major systems within the body. But that's the thing that I would do differently. And the good thing is that the military is starting to bring in public speakers like myself and others that I just interviewed, Dr. Ryan Williamson, who's a neurologist, to talk about maintaining your good health throughout your lifetime, starting today with lifestyle choices and other things that you can do, so that when you leave the military, you're going to have injuries, you're going to have emotional traumas. All of those things are going to happen. I wish I were equipped with the tools back then that I have today. And
Yeah.
it took me decades to develop those tools.
Well, and now you're able to share that on a bigger platform. Actually, this year you started your podcast. You're 37 episodes in, which is big, because you got to get over that first year, and then everything kind of, I promise you, it starts to get a little bit easier. New normal, big life. Buzzsprout.com. Anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can go to New Normal Big Life. Tell us about what you're doing on that platform.
Well, as you know, I sat down and wrote about my new normal big life. And then 4 years later, I was living it even larger than I imagined. And it's because I started with a plan and I worked that plan every single day. And what I do on New Normal Big Life is I do a lot of the research that took me decades to develop and find, so you don't have to. And what makes us different from a lot of health and wellness podcasts is that we create step-by-step plans that you can download at no cost if you subscribe to our newsletter at nnbl.blog. And then you can download step-by-step, what vitamins and minerals do I need to take for better sleep, for better brain function, for lowering your inflammation markers, which are the precursors to a lot of the major diseases, like some cancers, heart disease, and diabetes, and even obesity. So we make it really easy for you to listen to experts and to listen to research that I've done on my own, and then to follow it with a downloadable step-by-step plan.
Yeah, and it's nnbl.blog is where you can actually go to get plenty of great information. Trust me, even in this little time that we've been here, I've been doing a lot of reading on you and the different avenues that you have put together. And I have to tell you, folks, if you get an opportunity to go to any of these websites, we'll have everything listed in the description, so that you yourself can go out and adventure in. See, I did that. Adventure in, adventure
I'm very clever.
out. Yeah, I'm trying here. There's been, my health has been recently a area of concern for me. I actually just, as we were talking beforehand, had a seizure. It was the first time in 2 years that I've had a seizure, and it can be scary when you're going about it not knowing somebody else has been through that as well. So I'm going to enjoy being able to connect with other individuals in your community and cross-flowing that community just a little bit more, because I know that there's others out there that have experienced the same stuff that I've experienced, and I think it's a little bit less scary because of that.
I agree. And, Nate, I love that I have access to all of these experts, because if someone like you and my other listeners, and I get a lot of listeners who will send me a text message or an email and say, I'm struggling with, or my family's struggling with this issue. Could you get an expert to talk about it? What can we do? We don't feel like we're getting what we need from our doctors. And I love being able to do that for people. This episode that will drop at midnight tonight has a lot of listener questions in it, and it's about brain health and longevity. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, amazing. And, the VA healthcare system has come a long way, but there's still a lot more steps that they can take in moving forward just a little bit more.
Yes.
Antoinette, any final words that you have for our listeners?
I want everybody to know that it's possible for you to not be stuck. Maybe you didn't have something as significant as Nate and me, and, it's not a traumatic brain injury or some huge life-changing medical challenge that you're wrestling with. Maybe it's just you're very lonely. You can't find friends, you can't find companionship, or you can't seem to find more than just a job or 3 jobs, but a career that you're passionate about. Maybe you're bored and you just don't have anything going on that's positive in your life. You don't have to live that way. You can start tomorrow building your new normal, creating the biggest life you can dream. And in a year from now, you're going to look back and say, wow, that lady wasn't nuts. She's right. It works for me.
And that's right, folks. She is not nuts, and it will work for you because there's a community that we have built up, and I am so blessed to be able to be a part of that community now. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Thank you for letting us peek behind the new normal big life and what that looks like in the sports venues, the ways that you have connected with people, and I'm sure that there's good stories that are just waiting to be heard. And with that, folks, connect with us in any way that you see fit, any of the social media, the Wartime Leadership Podcast, or just Wartime Leadership. If you go to wartime-leadership.com, you can listen to all of our past episodes, or go to the Wartime Leadership Podcast.com. That's a mouthful. Connect with us, leave us a story, leave us something, give us a direction that you want the show to go. Connect with us in all the different ways that you can see fit on the Wartime Leadership Podcast. Be blessed.